Okay, so my name is Carrie Dennis, and I tried to take a break from the Machiavellian world of politics and world news and follow a few of my favorite TV shows. Most of my life, I've never bothered to buy cable. I would just do bunny ears or PBS or movies or streaming. But a few times I did, and I got really interested in like The Real Housewives of New Jersey, and I liked that show and Atlanta and Dallas and Potomac and Beverly Hills. I, Last season, I watched a whole season of The Real Housewives of Orange County, and this is like I guess their 15th season, and they're doing the reunion. So I did watch last season. Just a little bit about me because I've shared information about me on Sherelle's World, and people have taken screenshots of my comments and then sent them to me or asked me about them. So yes, as far as my background, I'm not a celebrity blogger. That's not what I aspire to be. But I, like what I said was true. I graduated college at 20, shortly after my 20th birthday. Began teaching history. I have an MA and a BA in history. I taught some of the worst and the very best public high schools in the country. I worked for lawyers for 6 years, hated it. So, and what I was studying because I've been studying history, propaganda, government sponsored propaganda, in history in Hollywood since like 1997. In grad school, I was looking at U.S. foreign relations, Latin American and Mexican cultural studies. I've read declassified documents and looked at CIA psyops, psychological warfare, and black military ops. And this is what I do for fun. So the one thing people may not know is that I'm disabled. I had a spine injury in 2013, a neck injury. So I've been spent most of my time these last 7.5 years being on bed rest. And my weight is doubled, I guess. I've gained so much weight. That's my only one vice. So that's why I'm not in very good health, and I'm here because I'm in chronic pain and have limited mobility. So that's why I'm not working out teaching. I'm at home watching these bloggers. And I had no idea that celebrity bloggers or people who follow, Real Housewives, I had no idea that it was such a cutthroat business and that it was a whole other drama show. It was so melodramatic. But everything that's going on with like what I've seen, the interactions and among the bloggers. But I wanted to start making videos. I've considered doing it for the last 5 years. I would rather write blogs. I have a lot to say. I have a lot to research, and I can't reach that many people on Facebook because of being mass reported by a certain group of people, the kind of people who hurt children. I no longer have a Twitter account, but I did reach more people on Twitter. So there's certain things that you can't talk about. You can talk about a lot of crazy conspiracy theories. I mean, the term conspiracy theory was coined by the CIA, and it was just to discredit those who questioned the Warren report and did not believe that Lee Harvey Oswald, former Marine, that he was a lone shooter, that they questioned the Warren report. So the term conspiracy theory that's where that comes from. And there's a lot of crazy conspiracy theories you can talk about. I mean, there's some people who believe we never landed on the moon and the earth is flat. There's a lot of crazy conspiracies out there. Climate deniers, you know, the one thing you can't talk about is the fact that there are people who hurt children. And those people have infiltrated the Catholic Church. They're in the Protestant mega churches. They're in Hollywood. They're in DC. There's a lot of that's something you can't talk about. And but it's something that I feel very compelled as a survivor of abuse. It's something I'm very triggered by it, and I'm like super vigilant of it. And I just don't understand why when this story broke about Brown about Braunwyn Windham-Burke, when that story broke, I was watching the comments and reading the comments in both Monica All About the Teas chat and both Up and Adam. And the focus wasn't on abusing children. It was about cancel culture. It was about racism and not about hurting a child. And I thought that was really sick and disgusting. So I wanted to make a video about it. And I have some research and it's a lot. And I will continue making videos as long as I can. I don't know if I would love to engage and discuss and debate everybody that would challenge me on this, but I honestly don't think I can do that on social media. Okay, so for the last 5 years, since 2015, or I guess 6 years now, I've been watching this very orchestrated and concerted effort by very leftist publications. And it shouldn't be a partisan issue, but unfortunately, it's turned into a partisan issue, and it shouldn't be because anybody can be hurt. But there's been a movement, and there's been news stories about Salon, Todd Nicholson, and about Vice. Vice and Salon put out publications that, I don't know, they are seeking to normalize a certain behavior under the umbrella of the LGBTQ rights. And they want to change the P, which I guess is standing for PAN sexual. They want that P to stand for something else. And you know what? I'm more of a libertarian. So what you do in the privacy of your own home with consenting and adults being the two key words, that's none of my business. Just like it's none of your business who I voted for or where I go and pray on Sundays. So but when it comes to kids and being non-consensual, I have a problem with that. So, and that's what I want to talk about. There's been an effort in the last 5 or 6 years to normalize this behavior. It has now been declassified that it's no longer a mental illness. There's no longer, and I really have a problem with that because I believe that gay men have fought very hard to not be stereotyped as the P word. And they fought very hard to be able to work in elementary schools. And I don't want to see those two things conflated. So I've been following, there's a group called Heart Progress. And they are called virtual pedophiles, virtual ped. They're on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, but they're on Twitter. And they're pushing this propaganda and this agenda that it's normal, and it's not normal. They're called MAP, but I found out 5 or 6 years ago. They're called minor attracted person, a MAP, a no contact MAP. And so these are people who believe that it's perfectly okay to think this way, to be around children, and maybe they'll hurt them, and maybe they won't. They're kind of white knuckling it, trying not to give into temptation. And maybe they're going to therapy, and maybe they're not going to therapy. Maybe they don't think they have a problem. Maybe this is going to be the new normal. When the social media put out things that love is love, one of the things they did was to say that love has no age. And you know what? No, love has an age. It's 18 or whatever the age of consent is in your state or country. And this is what's on social media. And I live in a border state, and I know about NAFTA and the maquiladoras and what's going on with our borders. And the problem is more than guns. Let me take it back. The Mexican people, I love Mexican people. I love Mexican Americans. They are the salt of the earth. Unfortunately, people confuse the people with the corrupt government and the violent cartels. So that's the problem we've had. I've read books called The Daughters of Juarez and The Killing Fields about all of the maquiladora workers that have gone missing, that they're being abused. And because I guess they're Mexican women, nobody cares about them. That came out, and the United States and the Mexican government covered it up. So that's what's going on. More than drugs, more than guns, SEX trafficking, human trafficking is the bigger problem. And when you have open borders, it allows for that. And I'm very triggered by it because I'm a survivor myself. I'm trying not to say the right words, the wrong words, say the right words, not the wrong ones. So basically, one source I was looking at these like 5 or 6 years, they believe it's like a $33 billion industry a year that they are trafficking women, children in and out of the United States. And what people don't realize, what we were talking about, and I thought it was a conspiracy, there are companies that facilitate the purchase and the money arrangement, and then they launder the money. And one of the things that they do to launder the money turned out to be investing in films and art. That was a weird connection. There's usually bankers that are connected to this, like the Franklin cover-up in Omaha, Nebraska, and the Boys Town. So there's a lot going on, and I'm trying not to go off. So also what came out 5 or 6 years ago was that there are universally accepted symbols. And for girls, it's like a heart within a heart for little girls, if you're attracted to little girls. And for boys, it's a spiral, usually within a triangle. And I've included that so you can see what the FBI has exposed the use of that symbol universally. And I also included a company called the Laguna Coffee Company. And I wanted to talk about that and why that, because that company was featured on an episode of The Real Housewives of Orange County. So why would that? So I wanted to know, why did that company use that symbol? So it's not just one incident. This is in the Catholic Church. It's in the Protestant mega churches. It's in Hollywood. It's in DC. And this is just one example that you're seeing. And I saw it a year ago, and I knew there was a problem a year ago. So I guess I could have scooped that story because I knew there was something going on with that couple and seeing those images. Because in that one season, I saw both the company using that logo, and it was featured 5 times. And I saw the statement necklace, I guess you could call it, the necklace, that spiral necklace that Sean Windham-Burke wore. And I'm like, that's an awfully ugly, tacky necklace to him be wearing every time he's on screen. So I wanted to start making videos, even though I really don't care for this technology, but I just wanted to start because I have so much information and I really can't keep up with just typing it up and sharing it on one platform or another. Okay, so earlier this week, Monica from All About the Tea, she exposed Braunwyn Windham-Burke, and this came out in the reunion and it's still being teased like a trailer, like what happened, what is she being accused of? And so allegedly, Braunwyn offered an illegal substance believed to be a type of drug that's white in powder to Shannon Beador's 14-year-old girl. She's now 16. It's been 2 years. Her name is out there. I'm not going to say that child's name because she is a minor. And when Braunwyn was asked, she basically said, she blamed it on the alcohol. She said, I was drunk. I'm a drunk. I drink. And I don't remember if I did or didn't. So I just, I don't know. So that's not really a good, that's not really reassuring someone you want around children, that she's a blackout drunk and she doesn't remember if she did or didn't. And her excuse is alcohol. Excuse is not, that's not, no, messing with children. And your excuse is that you had too much to drink. So I don't go for that. And so my thinking is, when I was 17 and I went to university and I was living in the dorm, and I was a good Christian girl, I had a lot of boys, older men, 26, 27-year-old men who wanted to give me all the free alcohol and free drugs I wanted. But you know what? Nothing's free in this life. So I knew that these people are predators. Who wants to give a 14-year-old child, a drug like that? There's a very serious drug that can hurt a child or get them addicted. Nobody wants to party with children unless they're going to hurt them. So this is very serious, and I don't take this stuff lightly. So, as I said, last season, season 14, when Sean and Braunwyn when they first came in, he is wearing that necklace. Then we go to season 14, episode 15. Episode 15, it says the orange doesn't fall far from the tree. And when Tamara and I guess it was Shannon, when they sat down to get coffee, the universally recognized symbol is a symbol used among pedophiles, and it's the boy lover symbol. And it showed up like 5 or 6 times. They showed it on the signs, on the cups, on the bags. So they really wanted the viewers to see the sign. And I only watched one season, so I don't know if it's always featured, or that's because I see it a lot on TV in regards to children. So I don't know. And I find it unusual that a progressive couple in Orange County has 7 kids, 6 pregnancies, and 7 kids. And that she says she's an alcoholic, she's a drunk, but she's been pregnant and breastfeeding for 20 years since she was 19. And like that I'm real curious how that works. That you're breastfeeding and you're pregnant, but you have a drinking problem, and you keep getting pregnant, and you had 6 pregnancies, 7 kids. And people like the Duggars, people who are fundamental Christians or Protestants and Catholics, they do have large families. They're like, be fruitful and multiply. But you know who else has a large family? Mia Farrow. Mia Farrow had 15 kids. Only one child who was allegedly fathered by Frank Sinatra and not Woody Allen. Mia Farrow adopted 14 children. Some died in her custody. One of them was Dylan Farrow, and it was believed, and it's alleged by Dylan and Roman Farrow, that Woody Allen abused that little girl. And then when they started investigating it, they found the inappropriate photos of him with his other adopted stepdaughter that he was having an inappropriate relationship with. So when you see people who have a lot of kids, and they adopted a lot of kids, or they had a lot of kids, and then you find out that they are into threesomes, they have a love shack, they have a sex apartment. And then at one point, she's exposing her breasts. At one point, Kelly Dodd, they're in public and she's drunk and she's making out with Tamara, and then she has her breast out and they're squeezing because she's still lactating. And so she's in public with another adult woman. And so I'm just curious. Now, she came out as a lesbian. She's a lesbian now. So, and apparently she's always been a lesbian, but she's had her husband. So is Sean her beard? And it's really interesting because when Kevin Spacey was accused of hurting children, and there was evidence of it. Of course, all of those people the victims, his alleged victims, and the alleged witnesses, well, they all mysteriously died, and that case went away. But he came out as gay. He's a proud gay man. So when we accused you of hurting children, and then you thought that was the time to tell everybody that you're gay. So this season her next. So Braunwyn is on now. It's her second season, and now she's a lesbian, and everybody's like, "Yay, celebrate Braunwyn because she's a lesbian. She's in the LGBTQ community." And I'm like, "Well, okay, so Sean was your beard because you really like women, but are you Sean's beard?" Because that reminds me of another couple. Um, I, I, yeah, I really hate. Oh man, I really hate the Clintons, but I also hate the Bushes. I hate both. But I don't know if people realize this, but Hillary Clinton was always bisexual, and she was even having a relationship with Aberdeen. That was her girlfriend, and so Bill was her beard, but Hillary was Bill's beard because Bill was hurting women, and he was going to islands and hurting children, and that came out. He did that 31 times on the manifest, and you might know about that Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein. So So I'm very curious about the relationship and the dynamics and what's going on between Braunwyn, and Sean, and what's going on in their home with those 7 children. So during the vow renewal, because I mentioned this and someone told me about this because I haven't been watching the season, and I found the video, but I can't find it right this second. And it said that when they were doing their vow renewal, which is weird, why are you having a vow renewal when your marriage seems to be having problems? Because she's a lesbian, she's got a girlfriend, and she said she admitted to physically hitting her husband, and I guess he has a new girlfriend. This is kind of the new normal. But at the vow renewal, one of Sean's children says that he's going to run off with a 14-year-old boy. So I guess that's why he's advertising with that necklace. Now they also get into a storyline about drag kids, and that their son's, I guess he's gay and he's doing drag, and there's a drag queen involved. I love drag. I've been going to gay bars, or I used to go. That was the first bar I could go to at 17, and I think it's wonderful entertainment, but it's adult entertainment, and there's actually a connection between drag or trans and abusing children. And I would have to make some more videos. But I reread 2 books during research. I read them back in the day when they first came out, and I reread Party Monster by James St. James, and Michael Alec just died. He was convicted of murdering his drug dealer. But and Clubland was written by Frank Owens, and so they were talking about how there were trafficking boys, and they were, sex slaves, and it's called the white slave trade. And it says white, but that really means that it's an sex slave and not a slave, what we normally would think of as a slave. So they were trafficking boys, and it talks about how he dressed up an 11-year-old boy like Brooke Shields in Pretty Baby or in the Blue Lagoon. He dressed up this little boy, and he was auctioned off at a drag bar to people who. So that seems like a weird connection, but yeah. So they didn't want a little boy; they wanted a little boy dressed as a girl. There was also another drag queen called LaDonna. He was also in in Party Monster. If you go back and watch the movie, it does talk about trafficking boys and bringing teenagers up to New York City. And in the book, it talks about trafficking boys in and out of Germany because that was after the fall of communism. So it does talk about national and international trafficking. And that's not really, I mean, it's brought up and it's like, oh, it's like an afterthought, a joke. So the other thing is we were doing, it's really very trendy for public libraries, or I think we also had it here in our public art museum to have drag time story hour, because supposedly I don't agree with it. I think it's an adult entertainment. But here in Texas and Houston, the libraries, they weren't doing background checks, and these drag queens were allowed to use their drag name, not their real name. But then some parents followed them out to their car, got their license plate, did a background check, and found out that one of them was a convicted molester who hurt a little boy, and another, I think, worked as a prostitute. So I'm very concerned about what's going on under the umbrella of drag for trans rights, that little boys are getting hurt. I also thought it was strange that Dr. Deb, Braunwyn's mother, whereas the medicine woman, which I guess is appropriation of Native American culture. I'm part Native American. I'm not offended by that, but I am offended by some of the other things that we saw about Dr. Deb and Braunwyn. So when Dr. Deb, she was like, she wanted to be a rock star. She was in a band, and she used to take Braunwyn as a baby or a toddler to the Whiskey A Go Go, which is not really kid friendly place. But back in the 70s, they had this is featured if you watch the movie The Runaways. They had Rodney Bingenheimer's English Disco, and Joan Jett was there, and Cherie Currie, and that was the start of one of my favorite bands, The Runaways, back in the mid 70s, and they were literally underage girls. So that was the whole gimmick of it. But there were a lot of underage girls who were being abused by adult celebrities, like Lori Maddox, and that, I guess, in, I don't know, being a 13 or 14-year-old groupie and having these adult men, like I think David Bowie is one, and so Led Zeppelin. But yeah, so there's that. And then in the 1980s, there were these kind of club sodas, these kind of clubs or dance parties where celebrity kids could go, like Drew Barrymore and Corey Feldman and Corey Haim and Elijah Wood. And so there was those kind of parties where kids were partying, but they were supposedly only drinking soda, but people were giving them drugs and alcohol and getting them addicted. And we saw how that worked out for those child stars. But of course, that's how Hollywood's been. There's always been a casting couch. There's always been a Harvey Weinstein. That's always happened for women. And it happens for men, regardless if you're gay or straight. You want the part. That's also happened for children. And if you go back and look at Shirley Temple and what's called the baby burlesque, spelled with a K, not a Q, that's always been there. This has always been a very sick thing that's going on. If you do your research about Hollywood, and there's some excellent books about it. There's a couple of things I also wanted to discuss. So during season 14, episode 12, it was called Fashion Show Faux Pas. And now this is when Braunwyn's daughter, Rowan, who had been suffering from an eating disorder, and started an athletic line, and she wanted to debut it. And Shannon's daughter, Adeline, was going to walk in the fashion show. And for Orange County Fashion Show, it's on a boat. It was a 3-tier boat. I mean, I don't say a boat, a boat. And Dr. Deb wanted to go to the 3rd floor where the models were, and it was off limits. And so Christopher Keys, who sponsored the event, he tried to reach out and get her attention, like tap her on the shoulder, and she became belligerent, and there was a confrontation, and eventually she ended up calling him the N-word. So Monica has had him on her live feeds, and when she broke the story on Monday, he did come back on. And his name is Christopher Keys. He was not security. He was the event sponsor. I think I feel like he owns the boat, but I don't know if that's true. So he just reached out to get her attention. And Dr. Deb claimed she was assaulted by the security guard. Now, the whole time she's on mic, so Bravo says that she never said the N word, but Christopher Keys said she did. And that Bravo and Andy Cohen, that they didn't disclose, like they deleted it, so it didn't get covered up. And so I'm not surprised. But Braunwyn, even after the incident was over, and Kelly Dodd got involved, even though it wasn't her fight, and eventually they realized, oh, our children are here. This is a children's event for our kids, and they go to school. The kids go to school with the event sponsor's children, so it's probably not a good idea to cause a bigger scene and ruin the event anymore. Of course, when Braunwyn was leaving, she was in the car, like, amped up, wanting to fight, talking about nobody else with my family. So she had caused this big scene, and Monica and says that, Dr. Deb, and after that aired, Dr. Deb and her daughter Braunwyn, they unfriended each other on social media. Dr. Deb has said a lot of things on social media, and a lot of people. And Monica claims that she's used things about Mexicans that were derogatory, or Mexican Americans, and that she said some really crazy things that do come off like racial slurs. And so Monica also said that Braunwyn protested for Black Lives Matter only as a PR stunt, with a photo opportunity to kind of, I guess, redeem her reputation because of this incident last season. So I'm not surprised that they're public. They basically filed a false police report against their only African American coworker or castmate. Monica in her panel, they did say that Braunwyn, as a white woman, what the LA County Sheriff badge looks like. That badge has the same symbol, same boy lover symbol on it. So yeah. So that's in LA County though. So these people don't go to jail. Well, I guess that's all I wanted to share. I know everybody's celebrating that Biden won. For the last year, it's been a little bit above there. So I don't know. And of course, it was just more politics and more racism and race baiting. On Monday, it was Martin Luther King Day for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I know I'm going to if someone watches this video, I know I'm going to get criticism, just like if I get criticism in the comments. But there's a reason why men love his pilgrimage, and John Lennon. There's a reason why the people who run this country, not the politicians, but the people that run this country, there's a reason why all of those men were assassinated, because they preached peace and they preached racial harmony. And people don't want us to get along, and they don't want us talking. They want us in our echo chambers. They want us fighting. They want us divided. It's conquer. It's divide. I don't see how that's going to fix. So I don't know. So I wish fighting could fix everything that's going on in the world, or we could reset back to normal in 2019. I came home today and I was worried about my neighbors, because I've seen the constables out here serving eviction notices, and the S rates and the DV rates are up. And so I guess I'm just going to pray about it. but I'm also going to continue to talk about things because the limited amount of TV I watch, I still see these symbols and I see a lot of subliminal messages and a lot of agendas that are being pushed. And if you're not aware of those things, you might claim you're red pill or you might claim you're woke, but there's a lot more that's going on, and I just feel compelled to now start sharing that. All right, well, okay, well, thank you. This is my first video, first attempt.